welcome to ACE Charter Schools. We are really excited to get to know and interact with the students and alumni of USC. So here's a quick agenda. We will be introducing ourselves. Welcome, welcome. We're going to talk a little bit about our school's mission and vision. We'll talk a little bit about the impact that we've had on the East San Jose community. We're going to get to hear from one of our alumni in a quick video clip, and then we'll talk a little bit about our teacher experience as well as our resident teacher program, and then, of course, end with an opportunity to answer any questions you all may have. So thank you for joining us, and we'll go ahead and start with some introductions, and I'll pass it over to my colleague, Janina.
All right, I'm Janina Murphy. I grew up in the Bay Area. Um, so I'm happy to be back and working in the Bay Area. So the first picture is where I grew up. It's a small town near the beach in West Marin. And then I went to college in New Orleans. And while I was there at Tulane University, Roll Wave, I did a volunteer teaching program while I studied abroad in South Africa. It's called Shako Education. And on the bottom left, you can see me with some of my students from that program. I studied economics, so I did not envision becoming a teacher until that moment, and then definitely got hooked after that experience, and thought about going back to teach abroad, but ended up realizing, I was involved in a lot of service organizations in New Orleans, and so decided I wanted to stay and teach in New Orleans through Teach NOLA, which is a teaching fellows program, alternative certification pathway through the New Teacher Project. And I worked with those cute little students peeking out of the school bus in the right hand corner. I was an elementary school special ed teacher, and then moved back to the Bay Area and fell into a teacher recruitment role with a few different organizations, but really grateful to work at ACE now. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you, Janina. I'm Salita Mitchell, and I too am from the Bay Area. I grew up in Berkeley, California, and moved to Los Angeles when I graduated college. I'm a first generation college student, so education is something that is near and dear to me. I majored in business law at Loyola and actually was recruited to a teacher residency program, Teach for America, which is pretty popular. I actually had a great experience with Teach for America. I was placed at a middle school in South Los Angeles where I taught middle school math and science. And I definitely had a lot of success in class, but wanted to, continue that and continue to grow as a teacher because that job never ends. And so I moved to a different school with KIPP Charter Schools, and it was actually a founding school. So I got to learn about the day-to-day tasks that a principal may have, and then also just thinking about the systems and procedures that really set up a foundation for a school to be successful. And so after teaching there for 3 years, I took on a few leadership roles with mentoring teachers. I was grade level chair, and so I wanted to kind of step out of the classroom to really provide support for teachers. And that led me to move back home to the Bay Area, in which I've worked at a couple of charter schools here in the East and South Bay Area. I've served as a dean of instruction, a vice principal, and even this past year, I stepped up to lead our school as we had some changes in staffing within expansion. And so I have been at ACE. I'm relatively new since January. And with having over 10 years of experience in education, it's really important to me to work for an organization that's aligned to my core values and to what I believe is best for students. And since I've been here since January, I've seen that on all levels, starting from the top with our CEO, all the way down to how we include our parents. With the pandemic that has happened, I can really see how ACE is an influential member in the community and really making changes and being there for families and students. And so that's kind of a little bit about my why. And thank you, Janina, for sharing. And then, of course, if you haven't already, go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please let us know. All right. So our mission ACE ensures students who are struggling gain the skill and will to succeed in college and beyond. And so when ACE was created, it was really meant for students who feel like college may not be for them, or students that have not found success in their previous schools. And so that is our target population. And we feel that providing an optimal learning environment along with building relationships and having a supportive staff can really yield some amazing results. And so the way that we kind of see that play out is through our vision, which is students excel in an equitable education system that equips them to make transformative choices for their families and our communities. And we also have a motto, which is to grow everyone every day. And again, you'll see this through our coaching, through our professional development. And we believe that growth happens for everyone, regardless of where you kind of come in. Janina, feel free to chime in if I miss anything.
Yeah, no, that was great.
Okay, perfect. So we kind of like to look at our values in 3 different realms. And if you can go ahead and take a look at the 3 bubbles. I'll talk about the first one, which talks about all students having extraordinary potential. We really like to recruit the most disengaged students and students that have been historically disadvantaged. Students who maybe have not found success, as I mentioned before, in their previous school, and we really hone in on our relationship buildings. I like to note, which I think is unique, ACE actually has community outreach managers and recruiters at every site that really facilitate the connection between families and the community as well as the school. Our next value is that every student deserves to feel confident that they belong in school. We like to teach our students about optimism and about self-confidence, and we really like to celebrate our students' achievement. We have this term that we call ganas, which means effort or the desire. And we really like to really celebrate students, maybe not necessarily the highest achieving students, but students that we've seen the most growth in, whether that be in reading, in math, or in their social skills. And we purposefully embed time within our weeks and within our school schedules to come together as a community to create that belonging that all students need. Our last value is that once a student independently realizes their potential, they are ready for life. And so through teaching all of these skills and really embedding a rigorous curriculum along with that social emotional component, we really invest in preparing our students to navigate the world beyond our school and to thrive in college as well. All righty. So now I'll talk a little bit about who we serve. So in thinking about our community outreach managers and our recruitment managers, we really want to make sure that we are recruiting students who really need us the most. And so looking at the demographics specifically in San Jose, about 80% of students are heading into middle school failing. Our schools are spread out amongst middle schools and high schools. So we actually have 3 middle schools, and we start our middle school in 5th grade. 5th through 8th grade, really because we see a huge gap and disparity within our incoming middle school students. And so a little bit more about our demographics, about 92% of our students come from a low income background, about 50% of our students are English language learners, and 93% of our students are going to be the first to attend college in their families. We also serve a 20% population of special education students. That's about 1 in every 5 students around our campuses receive specialized services, which is almost doubled compared to the neighborhooding schools. And so with those demographics, we are very proud of our impact and proud to say that we have 90% of our students who are qualifying for 4-year university based off the A through G requirements of getting a high school diploma. And this is 4 times higher than the schools in our neighborhood. Of those students, 77% are accepted to a 4-year university. And again, between 97 to 98% of our students are the first in their family to take this journey. So I will go ahead and stop there. If there are questions in relation to our mission and vision, please put them in the chat and Janina will respond. I'm gonna go ahead and play a video that kind of captures the story of one of our alumni students. And as you watch the video, if I want to pose a question to you, the question is, how do you see ACE's mission and vision reflected in our student's story? And if you can, it could be one word or a sentence. As you watch, feel free to go ahead and put that in the chat.
Once you attend ACE, even for a year or a semester, and you compare it to another public high school, it's totally different. The resources here, the teachers here really do care about you. I started off really bad. I didn't really care about my grades or the teachers or the staff. I was really disrespectful. I was always in the office, being suspended, being in detention. I was so close to being expelled, but they obviously saw something in me, the potential that I had. They didn't give up on me. Their advice really helped, and throughout the years, I did improve. I really changed as a human being. That was really horrible in freshman and sophomore year, but I'm obviously a good student now in college, and it turned my life around.
All right, thank you. Gonna go ahead and pass it over to Janina, and if there's anyone who wanted to share, or if there's any comments in the chat, Janina, I can't see it, so feel free to move that direction.
No worries. First off, apologies. I had to turn off my video because my bandwidth wasn't so great. So excited to share a little bit more about our awesome teachers. This is a photo of our staff at ACE Empower Academy, which is our flagship middle school. So first, just wanted to share a little bit about our teaching residency program. So this is specifically designed for someone who may not be qualified or on a teacher track at this time. So our only application requirements are a bachelor's degree and satisfying the basic skills requirements. So it's really for someone who is hoping to transition into teaching as a profession. The residency program is unique in that you would be working alongside a master teacher at ACE, gradually taking over responsibilities in the class. And ideally, our residents would be enrolled in a credentialing program, learning about the theories of education and marrying that with practice in our program. It is a full-time position with benefits. A lot of our residents may have struggled to pass their CSETs, and that could be a barrier to them getting their credential. And so we do cover the cost of testing for our students, or excuse me, for our residents. And we do offer online tutoring support resources as well. So really a great pathway for newer teachers or aspiring teachers. Just a little more about our program. Our resident teachers are included in all of our professional development and coaching opportunities, just like our regular teachers, which I'll talk about in just a second. We do see this residency program as the beginning of a 3-year commitment to ACE, because in that first year, our residents are focused on, in the first year, our residents are focused on, meeting all of the requirements, the testing requirements and credentialing requirements for a preliminary credential. And then it's a 2-year commitment to induction, which ACE covers the cost of. So at the end of 3 years, the goal is to have a fully cleared credential, and also just be fully integrated and ready to just be a really high performing, incredible teacher for ACE. Awesome. So now talking more broadly about our teacher support and development. So every teacher has a one-on-one administrative coach, and it's a very collaborative relationship. Your coach will come and observe you once a week for 15 to 20 minutes. And especially for newer teachers, as Salita and I can both remember, you're very good at identifying all the things that are going wrong in your classroom. And it can be overwhelming and hard to figure out, like, what should I really focus on? Like, there's 10 million things and I don't want to stay up till midnight tonight prepping all of the 10 million things. Like, how do I prioritize in a way that's best for students and growing in my development? So your coach is really critical to celebrating the things that are going well in your classroom, and then target what we call the highest leverage action steps. So what is something that we can practice or integrate into your lesson plans right now that will benefit your students tomorrow? We have a coaching rubric, so teachers can see very clearly, you know, what, and the rubric is progressive. So our teachers can identify with their coach, like where they're at on the rubric, and also see their growth, and set goals based on the rubric to prioritize those skills. And our teachers report very supportive relationships between our teachers and our admin. So between 81 and 95% of our teachers respond favorably to survey questions around staff, school leader relationships. So it's not an opportunity to catch you doing something wrong. It's really an opportunity to grow your practice. We also have PD twice a week. On Mondays is a late start with students, and the first hour of the day is reserved for professional development focused on data reflection. So our teachers meet generally in department teams. They bring student work from the previous week and group students based on misunderstanding. So not necessarily based on like high, middle, or low scoring students. It's more nuanced. What is the common misunderstanding between this group of students? And then you have an opportunity to make plans for reteach in the upcoming week. Then on Thursdays is a half day with students, and the other half of the day is reserved for professional development with staff. And sometimes that's a very targeted skill building session that maybe the administrators or coaches identified most teachers need to work on. Or it can also be an opportunity to plan for student-led conferences or school dance, or just an opportunity to have all teachers in one room at the same time during the school day. 4 times a year, we have network-wide PD, and since our schools are pretty small, you may be the only 5th grade English teacher at your school, and so the network-wide PD is an opportunity to reflect on the interim assessment data and then look towards the upcoming unit with the support of other 5th grade ELA teachers at the other school sites, for example, and also an opportunity for vertical alignment because our high school teachers are also included in those PD days. And then lastly, we do offer tuition reimbursement. So here's a little bit on day in the life. I'm gonna try to not walk through every piece. I'll give you about 1 minute to just look everything over, and feel free to throw some questions in the chat. I see it lighting up. I promise I'm not ignoring you. We will make sure to get to all of your questions. Great. The one piece that may be a bit unclear is the college readiness or advisory block. So every day there's a 45-minute block for students to complete their homework during the school day with the support of their teachers and their classmates. It's also a time for goal setting. So ACE partners with an online platform called Sown to Grow, where students can set weekly goals. And so the teacher, they will submit their goals, and then the teacher can in real time share feedback with students on those goals and help the student track their own progress towards reaching those goals. So at the beginning of the year, they might Oh, I see my internet connection is unstable. Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, my internet connection is unstable, so I'm sorry for that. I think I've covered most things on the advisory. If you have other questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. And then here are some of the roles that we're recruiting for. Just in full transparency, this isn't an exhaustive list, nor is it necessarily fully updated. We'll be sure to share out a link to our job board with NARE after this webinar so that you can see what roles we're actively recruiting for. And then lastly, we just wanted to invite you all to stay connected. We try our best to be active on social media. There's been some really exciting work happening in response to the COVID-19 crisis. And I think ACE has been doing an excellent job at staying connected and true to our mission in serving our families. So really, it's a great way to just stay connected with us. LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever works for you. Awesome. So we do have some questions in the chat. I'm going to start with those, but feel free if you have follow-up questions, feel free to jump in. So the first question is around student recruitment. So how exactly do you choose students? How do you help students like the one we saw in the video? Do similar students get assistance of counselors? Great. So first on the how we choose students. So Salita mentioned our community outreach managers. Their role is to attend community events, knock on doors in the community, track. They actually have maps that track like who has students around middle school or high school age, and they, after repeated interactions where they learn the student's story, try to revisit students that may have these fixed mindsets around college access. So I'll give a specific example. I went out recruiting with one of our middle school teams at ACE Esperanza. They walked to a house that was a few blocks away, and there was a student there that looked like maybe 7th or 8th grade age. And the community outreach manager knew him right away. How's it going at your big public school? And he said, oh, things are okay. And another younger sibling comes out and says, oh no, I don't know. He's not doing so well. And they responded with, okay, like, is this the year that you're going to come to ACE? Because that's why we're here. We want you to join our school. And when we left, after having a little more of a conversation with the student and with their guardian, I asked, you clearly knew that student already. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? And they said, well, this student signed up to come to ACE Esperanza last year in 6th grade. They signed up to come the year before in 5th grade, and they didn't show up either year. So we went back because that's exactly the type of student that we feel needs to be at ACE. So I hope that illustrates or gives some color to your question. And then how do we help students? I mean, there are a lot of different ways. I'd love to have Salita chime in on this too, if I'm forgetting something. The advisory period is really critical to that success in a lot of ways, because it helps facilitate the relationship building process. Our teachers and all of our staff have to understand that in order to build that sense of belonging in school, students and families need to trust us. And that trust building takes a long time and takes a lot of patience. And there isn't really a clear-cut way to meet every student where they're at. It's very individualized and requires that relationship building. In terms of overall structures, so the advisory period and Sown to Grow has been really helpful in facilitating that relationship building process. Our professional development sessions, I mean, I sat in on one in response to COVID where teachers and staff spent an hour figuring out how they were going to build community over Zoom and came up with ideas like, we'll walk around the neighborhood and write kids' names on the sidewalk with sidewalk chalk and like give them messages that way. We'll set up, cooking sessions or different activities and games. Another school set up a hot corner. Just being really intentional about how we build community is important, and something that kind of we do, is part of everything that we do. Do you have anything to add, Salita, that I'm missing?
No, I think you hit it pretty much straight on. I think that, really focusing on developing like the social emotional skills and really training our teachers to recognize that some of our students may come from trauma-informed backgrounds. I mean, our students have not had success in their last school, so really creating that culture to build like that positive interaction with school is something that is unique. And then the teacher support. And so when we look at the level of support that our principals receive, that our teachers receive, teaching in regardless of your position, whether you're a paraprofessional or even, our office assistant, we really have to invest in like the emotional resilience of our staff and really creating opportunity for our team to collaborate and team build. I think it really creates this family vibe to where we're not giving up on students, and we're really just gonna push them. And once you're an A student, you're always with us. And I think that's what kind of sets us apart.
And then lastly, there was a question around counseling support. So we have a social emotional counselor full-time at each of our schools. We hope, so that position is primarily focused on our students with IEPs that have counseling minutes specifically outlined in their IEPs, but our Director of Student Services does hope to build out an intern program so that we can serve more general ed students in-house. However, we do have strong community partnerships that we do refer families to. And again, kind of going back to this idea that like, that it's like challenging to pinpoint exactly what relationship building looks like. What it looks like is if a parent is advocating for something that they need, then we connect them with whatever it is. We may not be able, like we are transparent with what we can and can't provide, but we do know and have connections in the community to ensure that we're able to get them the support that they need. And that's looked like very different things for different families. I mean, we have a really strong partnership with the City of San Jose Gang Prevention Task Force. So they've been incredible community partners, not just for our families and students with affiliation, but also in teacher training. They've come in and done professional development for our teachers. We've done social emotional professional development for our teachers through, oh man, it's escaping me, but we partnered, I think it's called Responsive Classrooms. We've done that in the past, but again, like through coaching conversations, it's something that our administrators are laser focused on. If you were struggling to connect with a student or had concerns about a student, that's something your coach could help support you with. And yeah, I hope that answers the question around counselors and support. For our residency program, is it only open for math, science, and SPED? Right now, it is only open for math, science, and special ed. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have majored in math, science, or human development. As long as you have a bachelor's degree and you intend to pass the CSETs in one of those subject areas, then we're willing to consider your candidacy. And then what does enrollment look like at your school? So we have 250 students at at each of our middle schools and 410 at our high school. So very small, which enables us to build relationships in a bit of a different way than a bigger district or just bigger school in general. And there's also continuity. So 80% of our students students from the middle school end up transferring to the high school. So I've especially seen this with case managers during those network days. It's a great time for case managers at the high school, for example, to reach out to their middle school case manager and say like, hey, I have this student, I'm having certain trouble connecting with the family, or they're really struggling with math. Like, what are your recommendations? And thankfully, we do have that level of continuity and really see ourselves as a 5th through 12th grade model. So even if you're a 5th grade teacher, the hope is that you can still see their photo of, during high school decision day where students decide which college they're going to. Like, even if you're a 5th grade teacher, you could still see where that 5th grade student eventually gets to and feel that impact, which is incredibly important for our middle school teachers because that patience is really necessary, and the runway is just a lot longer than at the high school level. Cool. Any other questions? Kimberly, you asked some great questions in the chat. Do you have any follow-up?
I think the only other question that I'd have is, well, I have two. One would be, have you guys always done 5th grade for middle school? And have you seen any like noticeable differences in extending middle school to be encompassing 5th grade as well?
Yeah, that's a good question. We have always had middle school starting in 5th grade. Is there a noticeable difference? I'm not sure the data on that. And to be honest, it's tougher to recruit students at the 5th grade level because we do offer a 5th grade promotion, mainly because it was a really big deal for our families. Like they would not come to ACE if there wasn't a 5th grade promotion, because that's how it is at other schools. So our 5th grade cohorts are generally smaller. I'd be curious to hear, I'd definitely be curious to hear what our director of schools would say, because he would have a better understanding of like, what if teachers, he would have a better understanding of like the anecdotal data with teachers, like 6th grade teachers that work with 5th grade students versus 6th grade students, and what that difference would look like. My gut would tell me that the 5th grade students that had been at ACE would just have a bit of an easier transition culture-wise, because it's the same school and the same teachers, same principal, same expectations. But I don't know if it really makes a difference if it's 6th grade making the transition or 5th.
I can kind of chime in. I mean, this is kind of, it would be good to see like where that started. I know it's pretty popular with charter schools to start in 5th, but I actually taught 6th grade and then taught 7th grade. And so once I went to the charter school that started in 5th, there is some nationwide data that shows when naturally students have dips, and what they do is they look at the statewide data for that grade level, and naturally 6th grade students take dips. And so as a 6th grade teacher, that was something that my principal always kept in the forefront, in knowing that the population of students that come to our schools, they're generally 2 to 3 years behind. So the kind of thought process behind that is if we get them a year earlier, and normally our goal is to make 2 to 3 years of reading growth or math growth, that we can incrementally catch them up prior to them going to high school. And so that's kind of what some of the education discussion is, and along with the culture, because it does take time to adapt to kind of some of the expectations that we set for our students and families. And so those things kind of coupled together, I would say, are the reasons.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I wasn't quite sure if you'd have information on that, but it makes sense. I mean, yeah, So thank you. My last question I think would be, in looking at charter schools versus public schools, why should like a teacher candidate like me choose a charter school over a private or a public school? I'm sorry, a public school.
Salita, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I'll take that. And then if I miss anything, chime
Yeah.
in. So I have worked primarily with charter schools, and I have colleagues and, done consulting for some public schools. But what it boils down to is most people who join the teaching profession are in it for the long haul. And so there's definitely been like divides, but charter schools really have the autonomy to kind of create their culture from the ground up. And with our school being kind of a school that was grassroots founded and started, I think that's important that we have the person who founded the school, who had this initial vision, who's there still sitting at the table making these plans that are going to impact students for generations and futures beyond. And so when it comes down to curriculum, when you're a teacher at a charter school, you really have the opportunity to connect with your coach, and they're going to create goals that are best for you and for your kids in the moment, versus always associating things with like district and like best practices that sometimes can get outdated. But again, it all really depends on the leader and what those core values are and whether or not it aligns to yours. And so somebody in your position who is kind of looking at a school, that's kind of where I go first. Who are the people that are leading? What are their values? And then kind of what do I kind of get out of it? And so at district schools, I'd say they have some of the same opportunities too, but sometimes you have historic kind of challenges or people that have been in position for years and years who maybe are preparing to retire or who are just kind of there, versus at charter schools, we have the autonomy to kind of build a model, change the model, and really use data to kind of back that. And so, Janina, I don't know if that answered or if you have anything to add to it.
Yeah, no, that was great. I just want to echo that the school, I'm assuming, are you a teacher candidate? Like you're finishing up your credential program?
Yeah, I graduate in December, or I finish in December.
Yay, you're almost there, home stretch. So for you, I think the leadership fit is huge. Knowing who your principal is going to be is so important. And even if a district or charter, regardless, even if the overall mission and values, you're like, okay, this seems great or seems aligned, because they can kind of start to look similar, honestly. So what I would recommend is that leader or coach or principal fit is most important, especially for a new teacher where you're really relying on your leaders, your co-teachers or grade level teachers for support. You want to know that those people have your back and that you're aligned to them. You want to work not just for your students, but also for them. I almost feel like that's the most important, regardless of district or charter.
Mm-hmm. And then really just like Janina said, looking at the resources. So what supports do they provide for you? Because you can have, I've had a principal that was all about appreciation and always like acknowledge the great things. But as a new teacher, you want to grow. And so you want to be in a place that's going to provide coaching. Coaching is so high level now, and principals are like going to programs where we're learning, how to be better. And so you want to make sure that you're getting coaching. You want to make sure that the resources that you'll have for your students are there. And then also just that relationship piece, because you will be connecting with parents, with students, with various stakeholders, and you want to make sure that that leader is going to also promote that and have that as a high priority.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Well, Nare, what would be our next steps? Like, what would you like us to share with you or circulate or?
Yeah, so thank you for your time, and thank you for the participants. the last step would be that if you have any positions available, or if you want to share any additional resources, please email them to me and I will share them alongside this recording for students who didn't have the opportunity to participate in the live session.
Wonderful. I'll turn on my video to say goodbye. Hopefully it doesn't crash.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
I appreciate the time. Thanks.